most people still, although it's changing fast, but most people still dismiss the idea of any coordinated global conspiracy because they say it's impossible. Well, when you see how it's structured, it's perfectly straightforward. It's very simple, the structure through which they do it. But it's can't be, get around in, instead of, well, let's have a look at this, because we, young people today, are going to have to, and children today, are going to have to live virtually their entire lives in this global fascist state. You know, I ain't going to be around, I'm 57. I ain't going to be around as long as they are, right? I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for my kids, my grandkids, and everyone else's kids and grandkids and young people who are going to have to live in this Orwellian nightmare, in a world which some of which will make Orwell wince, never mind anybody else. And it's time for people to stop being juvenile and wake up, become adult, become conscious, and see what is blatant once that happens. Well, man-made climate change is a lie. It's a massive lie. You know the greatest form of mind control? Repetition. Greatest form of mind control. You keep repeating the same lie and eventually it becomes truth, right? So every time there's an event in the world, be it 9/11 or an economic crash, whatever, there is the official version of what's happened. And that's all it is. It's the official version of what happened. And it gets repeated. The media pick it up from the authorities. This is what's happened, this is why it's happened, and they just repeat it. So 24/7 from that moment on, everyone is being given the same fake, false, fraudulent version of events. And eventually it becomes official history, official truth, and the great one. Everybody knows that, mate. And then when you start a modicum of research of these official explanations, you find that they're a house of cards, that they have no substance whatsoever. And it's the same with scientific fact. When you talk to scientists about various things that are accepted as fact, for instance, the molten lava, whatever, at the centre of the earth and all that stuff, you find that actually they don't know. It's what they think. It's not what they know. But people think, oh yeah, that's true. The centre of the earth's like that. Just because of repetition. Bin Laden was behind 9/11 because of repetition. He wasn't behind 9/11, but he became the official version. And I have to say this, you know, Kirk. I just shake my head sometimes in despair. You have the left, and who were anti-war, who go around calling Bush and Blair liars and all this thing, be liar, you know, all the... Yeah. And then they accept that the people they are total liars are telling the truth about the official version of 9/11, right? And it's like... Hello? And 9/11 and global warming are fundamentally connected through a technique that I call problem, reaction, solution. There's certain things that if people understand them, the world starts to look very different. And those two things, I call them coordinates, are where this conspiracy wants to take the world, and two, the methods they use to take us there. Where they want to take the world, and my goodness, we're going there so fast, is to create a structure with a world government that would dictate to every country. In fact, there wouldn't be countries in the end, there'd just be regions. The world government would have a world army, which is going to be a fusion of the UN and NATO and other armies. And the world army would impose the will of the world government. They want a world central bank that would dictate all global finance. And they want a world currency, eventually would be only electronic, no cash, to work with the central bank. So there wouldn't be any other currencies except one electronic currency.
And a chip as well.
Yeah, and they want a microchip population connected to a global computer, for which there are massive implications for freedom, because it's not just about electronic tagging, it's also about external manipulation of mind, emotions and physical state. Under that structure, they want a series of superstates: European Union, African Union, the American Union. Stepping stone to that will be the North American Union, first of all, and an Asia-Pacific Union, probably others too, but those I know about. And under that edifice of power would come what are now called nation states, which are due to be broken up into regions to break up any unified response to the impositions from above. So that's where they want to take us. Why do they want to take us there? Because the number of people, it's a network of interbreeding bloodlines that goes back to the ancient world. The number of people who are manipulating this global fascist dictatorship in full knowledge is a fraction compared with the global population. They're the very few compared with the 7 billion people apparently around now. You cannot possibly control 7 billion people with any structure that has diversity, that devolves any real power to people and communities. The only way the few can control the many is to centralize decision making and centralize power. And if you look, because this is not a 5-year, 10-year, 50-year conspiracy, this is going on for thousands of years, bringing us into a certain state which we're now going into. First of all, we had the tribal situation where people in their individual tribes were deciding what happened. Then these tribes were brought together under what we called nations. Now, very few people compared with the previous situation, the tribes, are now dictating what's going to happen to a great load of tribes called a nation. The next stage is to bring the nations together. I mean, we're well along the road of that in Europe. And of course the African Union's there now and all the rest. So they brought the nations together under centralized control out of Brussels. Not even elected people. Not even elected people. Bureaucrats. Appointed bureaucrats.
European law can override our British
law.
Yeah.
I mean, do you know about 75 to 80% of laws that are passed in Britain originate the European Union now? It's extraordinary. And so that situation is only one step away from the world government dictating to the planet. And so the idea is to incessantly, and has been, to incessantly centralize power. Now, look at history. The whole theme of history is the constant centralization of power. And there's another little equation here. The more you centralize power, the more power you have centrally to centralize it even quicker. And that's why the speed of centralization of global power has got faster and faster, and is getting faster and faster all the time. To the point where we have a name for it, globalization. You know, people go and protest about globalization and its grotesque injustices around the world in developing countries. But they still see it as the result of big bad corporations, just greedy corporations. No, no. The corporations are not the origin of globalization. They're the vehicle for it. They're the vehicle through which it is expressed. Those corporations, in the end, are one corporation because of a structure of pyramids within pyramids. If you look at any organization today, they're pyramids. You've got the few at the top who know what the organisation's really about, what its goals are, what its aims are, all the rest of it, where it's going. And then as you come down from that pyramid peak in any organisation, you're meeting more and more and more and more people who know less and less and less about what the organisation's really about. They only know enough to make their contribution. The only people that know how all these contributions connect is the people at the top.